Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting this evening's show. On the satellite imagery, started out with some sunshine here over the southern southeast coast, kind of showery up to the north, and a band of showers and isolated thunderstorms moving in during the afternoon hours today, spreading even some rain down into the southern areas around Annette. And through the eastern interior, we had a trough here with a band of moisture extending from the Brooks Range southward across the upper Yukon Valley and in across the mid-Tanana Valley, right on down through the Madanuska-Susitna Valley areas to the Kenai Peninsula. And that's what brought all the rain today to south central Alaska and the Susitna Valley. That gradually inching its way eastward, and you can see a fair amount of clearing occurring back behind here over western Cook Inlet, all the way down to Kodiak Island, seeing some sunshine, and back into northeastern Bristol Bay. And then back out to the west there, another band of moisture moving in from the northern Bering Sea, coming down something like this, and then kind of pivoting in across the Seward Peninsula today with some areas of light rain, just cloudy skies, no terribly heavy amounts of precipitation with that. This mostly just mid and high level moisture here over the southeast Bering Sea areas down to the Alaska Peninsula, and farther out to the west, bigger system which tonight will push eastward into the western Bering Sea areas. The one that's coming onto the coast today, that moves inland, brings some rain in over the Northwest Valley areas, maybe the Koyukuk Valley back to the southwest. Rain spreading into the Kuskokwim Valley tonight and possibly making it all the way up to the Alaska Range toward morning, but that'll trail back into the Yukon, or into mainly the Kuskokwim Delta, coming across the Yukon Delta this evening, then scattering out to a few showers, but skies will stay mostly cloudy through this area here. And again, showers here over the southeast coast. Rainfall amounts today were about 3/4 of an inch at Gustavus and over at Sitka today. Again, some isolated thunderstorms. Those should end and just be kind of showery there over the panhandle tonight, with the trough still off the coast. High pressure building in, so the rain gradually diminishing, and that front or trough just breaking up and moving eastward with some scattered showers over the Copper River Basin and over the Alcan border here to the north. But look for some clearing to occur here across the Susitna Valley areas down into Cook Inlet. So that could lead to some low clouds and fog forming all through this area under the high there. But up along the Arctic coast, areas of rain and snow over the central and eastern coastline, right down into the Brooks Range. There could pick up 1 or 2 inches above 1,500 feet in the mountains up in that area. Scattered showers here down along the Aleutian Range in northeast Bristol Bay, but pretty fair, and the winds diminishing, gusting as high as 40 to 45 miles an hour at AKwx during the day today. Those will diminish here this evening and overnight tonight. And then for tomorrow, looks to be, after the morning low clouds and fog, should be a partly sunny day across south central Alaska and even Prince William Sound. Southeast interior, partly sunny skies, mostly dry up over the 40-mile country, but this trough moves through the panhandle, so left with mostly cloudy with scattered showers across all of the southeast coast tomorrow, kind of in a diminishing mode, may become isolated by tomorrow afternoon. The system out over the Bering Sea, strong westerly flow turning southwest right into the coastline. That's going to pull that system right in, and the moisture with this links up with that front that kind of dissipates into a trough, but still rain from the north central interior right back out to the southwest coast, and still the gusty winds, gale warnings out, excuse me, all along the coastline tomorrow and tomorrow afternoon, actually, and tonight, and that'll extend out over the Pribilof Islands, looking for west to southwest winds 35 to 40 knots in the southeast Bering Sea right up to the coast. Lighter winds up over St. Lawrence Island and the Bering Strait areas. The Brooks Range, again, mostly looking at snow above about 1,500 feet. Otherwise, rain and snow. Could see another couple inches tomorrow. Some rain and snow possibilities there for the central Arctic coast, but kind of drying out a little bit here over the western North Slope areas on out toward Cape Lisburne and Point Hope. But to the south here, very wet conditions, rain spreading down across Bristol Bay to the Alaska Peninsula. But still should be a partly sunny day, some variable clouds coming across Kodiak Island, still that westerly flow, and again, partly to mostly sunny skies here over the southeast interior. And then looking ahead to Monday, this area of moisture will come across southern Alaska Sunday night, and then into Monday the whole system kind of breaks up. The low center, one here over the southwest interior, another one up over the upper Yukon Valley, and quite an area of rain here from between the two lows there, right across the Tanana Valley down into the Kuskokwim Valley. Looks very wet, especially in the next couple of days. A lot of showers here, numerous showers, rain in the morning, south central Alaska turning showery throughout the afternoon, showers or periods of rain along the North Gulf Coast. And then this area of moisture, looking for the showers to pick up along the southeast coast here. Chance of showers with increasing clouds across the remainder of the Panhandle. It looks like most of this moisture here that's off the coast will slide off to the southeast, and that'll keep the shower threat going into Monday night and Tuesday here along the western Panhandle, but the bulk of this moisture should drop to the southeast there. Otherwise, showers here along the Alaska Peninsula, gusty west and northwest winds, 15 to 25 miles an hour, some higher gusts, possibly as high as 30 miles an hour. Breezy and wet along the southwest coast. Pretty numerous showers all through this area, but dry conditions back up to the northwest. The Kobuk-Selawik Valley areas out to the Chukchi Sea, Seward Peninsula could be partly to mostly sunny. Could even see some breaks along the western Arctic coast, but look for rain and snow along the eastern North Slope areas right up into the Brooks Range again, with rain across all of the upper Yukon Valley areas. Drying out here over the Bering Sea, really no upstream storms, maybe this one up there over the Russian Far East, but generally high pressure, light wind conditions here for much of the Aleutians on Monday, and then those winds coming down, just small craft advisories now over the southeast Bering and along the southwest coast, as opposed to the gales you're going to see tomorrow. And for temperatures along the Panhandle today, mid-afternoon readings look like this, mid to upper 50s here across the Panhandle. 64 at Annette was the high in the state today before the rain moved in, then they dropped back down into the 50s. Klawock had 54. 50 degrees at Sitka, Juneau, up to about 52, 54 both at Yakutat and Cordova, rain, and 46, chilly day there in Valdez, 55 up at Galcana, southerly winds there along the Copper River gusting 15 to 25 miles per hour today, 58 at Northway, but just 36 at Delta. Fairbanks, after the rain ended, pushed up into the lower 40s this afternoon. Lower 40s also up over the upper Yukon Valley areas, Arctic Village and Fort Yukon, both at 41. 36 at Anatuvik and 39 at Bettles. Tanana had 41. Up along the Arctic coast, pretty uniform temperatures in the lower to mid 30s there. Kaktovik up to 36. Point Lay at 35 with some fog. Wainwright right at the freeze point this afternoon. Upper 30s off to the west and southwest. Kotzebue had 41, 37 at Ambler, 45 degrees at McGrath, and a 43-degree reading there at Nome. But Golovin was up to 48, 46 at Unalakleet, 48 degrees at St. Mary's. Bethel had 49 and 50 at Macoriac. Tin City 41, Gamble at 46. And off to the southwest, kind of a range here, not much though, but 54 at St. Paul, 50 degrees at St. George, and lower to mid 50s here along the Alaska Peninsula and Bristol Bay. Kodiak had 54 and mid 50s out here over the central Bering Sea. Lows for tonight, upper 20s to lower 30s here along the North Slope and widely from the Brooks Range, Arctic coastal areas, and mid to upper 40s here over the southwest interior, and that same pattern here over the Aleutians and much of the Bering Sea. Shimia forecast low 52, mild out that way. and mid 40s to near 50 over the Panhandle, lower to mid 30s the Copper River Basin areas, with upper 30s to lower 40s for south central Alaska. And for the highs tomorrow, 50s here across all of the southeast coast, and lower to mid 50s here. Could be some upper 50s possibly through the Susitna Valley down to the Kenai Peninsula, especially Kodiak Island, looking at a high of 58 tomorrow at the state airport. Otherwise 40s through the interior areas from the Brooks Range out to the coast, highs in the mid to upper 30s, and upper 40s here for the Seward Peninsula, and near 50 over the southwest. Flying weather tomorrow, mostly a VFR day here over the southeast coast. This area should stay off the coast, and conditions improving throughout the afternoon there, with just some patchy areas of marginal VFR off to the east, and lots of marginal VFR in the central interior. Again, the southwest flow pulling a lot of moisture and lower flying conditions there, with some possible IFR there on the southern slopes of the central Brooks Range. Otherwise, VFR for the north slope, marginal conditions for the central and western Arctic coast, and a big area of IFR coming into the southwest Yukon, Kuskokwim Delta areas, spreading up to St. Lawrence Island, extending back across the Pribilofs all the way out to the western Aleutians. But not too bad day tomorrow, with some mostly VFR conditions there for Adak and Atka, Fox Islands into the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak VFR conditions. For the passes, Anatuvik, marginal VFR, possible IFR on the southern approach. That same forecast for Adigan. This IFR should be down on the southern entrance, with marginal conditions through the pass. Lake Clark and Merrill, look for it to be occasionally marginal, with the lowest conditions developing on the western entrances. Same forecast for Rainy, marginal VFR, again lowest conditions on the west side. Windy, marginal at times tomorrow. Isabel starting out VFR, and then as the moisture spreads in, becoming marginal in the afternoon, but Mentasta should stay VFR the entire day. Tanita looking marginal at times, and Portage VFR to start with, and then possibly becoming marginal VFR late in the day. And for Chilkoot and White, both marginal VFR. And for the freezing levels here, the cold air up to the north at the surface across the north slope to the Brooks Range, right along the Arctic coast there, and about 2,000 to 4,000 feet here through the interior, 4,000 feet now all the way down to northeast Bristol Bay and in across the Panhandle. We still have that much warmer air mass residing out here over the southwest Bering Sea, 14,000 foot freezing levels still out towards Shimia and Attu. And again, that moisture coming northeastward here, this temperature pattern kind of advecting to the northeast, and that usually means a lot of rainfall coming in with it. Icing above about 4,000 feet here over the north central interior of the light to isolated moderate rime varieties. Back to the southwest, could be some areas of occasional widespread moderate icing here over the southwest interior, and back down over the southeast Bering Sea at above 6,000 to 8,000 feet. Icing spreading into Bristol Bay and approaching the Alaska Peninsula and cutting across the northern Bering Sea. Looking at the jet stream tomorrow at about 33,000 feet, two branches show up here, one cutting from the west-northwest up to 140 knots into the central Bering Sea. Another one west-northwesterlies into the northwest interior, and then kind of dropping into the Gulf of Alaska as this trough shifts eastward across the Panhandle. It's going to kind of keep it showery, but look for those showers to decrease throughout the afternoon. And at 9,000 feet, strong flow across the Bering Sea, 35 to 50 knots, taking a turn to the northeast here right into the southwest coast, with pretty strong flow right into the central interior. So that's going to make for rain all through this area, but you can see the hints of some ridging here over south central Alaska, and that should hopefully keep things dry and partly sunny tomorrow afternoon. Much lighter winds over the southeast interior and the Panhandle. At 3,000 feet, much the same pattern, strong flow from the west turning southwest here along the coast, 30 to 40, as high as 45 knots there over the Pribilof Islands. Pretty good winds right into the central interior, much lighter and more variable up along the north slope and the Arctic coast there, with light southwest breezes here over the eastern interior areas, and kind of light and variable across the Panhandle, generally west to east in that area or northwest. In the lower levels there as that trough pulls into western Canada. And looking at the turbulence out there with the stronger winds, occasional light to isolated moderate chop right into the central interior, and then occasional widespread moderate chop here from about the lower Kuskokwim Valley out to the Delta, extending down across the Pribilof Islands, Nunivak Island, and then the Alaska Peninsula here, kind of right on the edge, as well as the eastern Aleutians, but Adak and Atka all the way out to Shimia. Look for light to occasional isolated moderate chop, all below about 6,000 feet. Pretty smooth here over the eastern and northern interior and down across the Panhandle. No significant turbulence in those areas expected at all. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts. Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service, and joining us today, two more people to talk about the augmented reality sandbox. It's Alana Valaji. She's a University of Alaska Fairbanks mechanical engineering student, helped design and work on the details to make this new type of sandbox there. Thanks for joining us, Alana. Thanks. And Courtney Breest, she's the outreach coordinator for AKwx, which is the experimental program to stimulate competitive research. It's a program funded nationally by the National Science Foundation, right?
Yes.
Okay. Alana, tell us about how you changed and adapted this version of the augmented reality sandbox. It's a really cool tool.
So Gina approached us with 3 goals for this new version of the sandbox. They wanted it to be compact in a light system that could travel around the state. They wanted it to be child-oriented, so we designed the sandbox to have 3 different levels.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. You can have younger children, you can have high school kids. I guess I should say high school teenagers.
Sure.
And then we also designed it to be more marketable, user-friendly, so that this could be seen eventually in classrooms all over the place, all over the state.
Okay. And you had a big hand in this, but this was a team approach, right?
Definitely. It was a really good experience for myself, for George Stevens, who we'll see later.
One of our hand models today. Yeah.
For 2 other members who aren't here today, Cody Klingman and Austin Hunt. And it was just a really good learning experience all around.
Very good. And this is something that is part of your learning experience as well, so you get to check a box in your education.
Yeah,
right?
it's a requirement for seniors of mechanical engineering at University of Alaska Fairbanks.
Very good. Very good. Well, it is a wonderfully inquisitive tool, fun to play with, and I hope to get my hands in the sand here in just a little bit. But it's also part of a bigger program, something that we were talking about a moment ago, AKwx, and that's what Courtney is here to tell us more about. What is AKwx and why do you need a sandbox?
Well, AKwx, as you mentioned, is a national program. We're funded nationally, but we're actually located statewide. We're at UAF, we're at UAA, we're in Southeast at UAS, and she mentioned, you know, taking the sandbox as an educational tool, and that's where I'm an outreach coordinator for the South Central test case.
Okay.
Our focus is on the Kenai watershed, and we are really interested in using these tools like the sandbox to interact with the students down there and get them interested in STEM and also communicate the research findings that we've been having throughout the state.
Okay. And one of those, as George and Eric are kind of changing the contours for us there from UAF to maybe something that resembles a little bit of something more of the Kenai watershed, which is one of your focuses for the study, right? And specifically looking at some of the changes there and how that impacts people and also the salmon.
Yes, it is all of our research is social and environmental.
Okay.
So we have social scientists working hand in hand with our environmental scientists. One of the things we're studying is Upper Russian Lake, and we have a researcher taking sediment cores from that lake. So one of the things we're going to use the sandbox to communicate is how the landscape changed over a long period of time, thousands of years, going from glacier, covered by glacier ice, to being filled with water. And
that's what they're doing right now.
Exactly. So
live.
So they're moving the
cool.
water around. And then I think they've got some props over there, because we're also going to go a little bit more in depth and explain how the salmon got there.
Okay.
So using
there's
these,
the salmon.
Exactly. Oh, I think there's a few more.
Yeah, we like more salmon in Alaska. More salmon.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really taking the findings from our research grant and just trying to connect with the community and translate it in a really hands-on and exciting way, so people can, you know, interact with us as much as possible.
Well, sure. That makes the learning and the science real and quite literally in your face, rather than just some boring black and white paper that you have to read about. This is something that people can understand better because it's visual and they're touching and feeling and seeing these changes, right?
Yeah, and get them engaged. And then outreach is a huge component, and working with the younger students, and actually even, I mean, working with the UAF graduate and engineering students it's a huge part of our grant, and we really enjoy it.
Oh, it is wonderfully exciting. And so, Alana, you were telling us that this is built to travel.
Right.
And this is built to do more things than version 1. Where can this type of project go in Alaska? And what can it demonstrate?
I mean, we were hoping to eventually get to villages that were harder to reach, that you couldn't necessarily move a whole fixed instrument to, right? You need something that can pack up, fit in your truck bed. I mean, one of the most attractive parts of this project is that this was going to be something that was used past our graduation point. You know, this is going to be something that lives in the state for years.
Right. Right. Well, it looks like you're well on your way with that. So what are, give me another example. What else can this show us? We've talked about the Kenai River watershed. What's the coolest thing that you've played in the sand with? What's your idea?
Well, I definitely enjoy the props, but we also like kind of building up a giant mound, and if you put some water behind it, you can make a little runway, I guess, and you know, demonstrate the effects of the hydrology by just putting up a dam and letting it all pour right down. And so that could, I think you mentioned it earlier, you could even demonstrate the effects of a tsunami.
Right.
Or something along those lines.
So it's not just topography, but it's also hydrology and coastal surge mapping and some of the coastal changes that we're seeing here in Alaska, and seeing what the smaller changes in the sandbox might do to kind of a real effect of a slosh or a push of water up on the coast. Tsunami inundation mapping, or even glacial dam release, as some has been demonstrated before. So wow, that's just an impressive thing. That it seems like the possibilities are nearly endless with this, and probably even more ideas that are popping up in your head too.
Yeah, as we speak.
Very cool. All right. Well, if folks want to get more information about AKwx, you guys are online. You're on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. AKwx, right? AKwx, Alaska AKwx, that is. And again, you guys are funded by the National Science Foundation, so more to come from that, and a longer-term study there. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. Congratulations on your hard work there. This is really fun. And for now, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, and I'm going to go play in the sandbox there. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back. Well, northwest winds here out along the coast, 10 to as high as 20 knots there for the south coast. Seas running about 6 to 7 feet. Light westerly winds over the central and southern inside water areas. Lynn Canal south at 15. And Monday, those pick up a little bit. Southerlies at about 20 knots with 4-foot seas in Lynn Canal. Light southerly winds again, Stevens Passage and Clarence Strait. West-southwest winds at about 15 knots on the south coast, while the north coast looking southerly at about 15 with 7-foot seas. For the Prince William Sound marine area tomorrow, light variable conditions with seas 2 feet or less. Westerlies 15 knots from the North Gulf Coast, but back toward the Barren Islands, small craft advisories for westerlies up to 25 knots. Same thing down across Kodiak Island. Shelikof Strait, though, southwest 25 with 8-foot seas, and south-southwest 15 to 20 knots for Cook Inlet. And looking ahead to Monday, southwesterlies here across Kamishak Bay into southern Cook Inlet about 20 knots, more of a southerly direction north of the Forelands. Prince William Sound, easterlies on the light side just 10 knots, and those seas staying slight, southwest 20 here, North Gulf Coast all the way down to the Barren Islands with 6-foot seas, while a little brisk there, Kodiak Island, westerlies at 30 knots with 9-foot seas. And for the Bristol Bay zone, gale warning, southwesterlies 35 knots tomorrow. That'll extend all the way down to Cape Sarachev there on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. Otherwise, small craft advisories, west-southwesterlies 25 knots with seas 6 feet, up to 11 feet here for the north side. And then westerlies at 30 knots, all areas, pretty general and uniform wind pattern with the winds, with seas running anywhere from 11 to 14 feet. So small craft advisories should be under gale force, at least the way it looks at this point in time. The gales should be over Sunday evening. And then for the eastern Aleutians tomorrow, southwesterlies 25 to 30 knots, so gale warnings here north of the islands with small craft advisories all the way into the central Aleutians. Southwesterlies 25 to 30 knots, extending all the way back out to the west there with seas running 10 to 12 feet. And the outlook for Monday, westerly winds on the light side coming down to 15 knots here for the central Aleutians, but still Adak and Atka about 20 knots there. And then small craft advisories here for the Fox Islands, westerlies 25 to 30 knots, and those seas running 9 to 14 feet. And for the southwest coast, from the Bering Sea actually here, the Pribilof Islands, southwest 40 knots right up into the coastline there, across Nunivak Island into Kuskokwim Bay, southwest 40 knots, seas running 12 to 15 feet in this area with lighter southerlies there for St. Lawrence Island, about 20 knots, but still small craft advisories here for the northern Bering Sea. And then for Monday, small craft advisories here for the Pribilofs, the southwest coast, kind of northwest 25 north of Nunivak Island. And with the low center pulling inland, those winds will swing northeast here for St. Lawrence Island, but looking westerly 25 across St. Matthew Island with seas running 10 to 12 feet. Up along the Arctic coast, westerlies 10 to 15 knots with 5 to 6 foot seas here on the eastern stretch of the coastline. Southeasterlies at about 20 knots in the forecast for the central coast with seas maybe up to 7 feet there. Southerlies from Wales to Cape Thompson. Lighter easterlies there for Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort and the western Arctic coast looking light. Southerlies at about 10 knots. And the outlook for Monday, they all go northeasterly and pick up here 20 knots over toward Kaktovik. We've got 30 knots small craft advisory winds from the eastern coast out to Barrow, northeast 25 with 8 to 9 foot seas through this area. Northeasterlies at 20 knots along the west side. There are 6 to 7 foot seas. Wales to Cape Thompson, northeast at 20 knots with 4 foot seas. And looking at tonight's forecast again, showers across the panhandle. Again, a trough still off the coast there. High pressure building in that band of moisture dissipates and moves off to the east. Scattered showers, Copper River Basin, but clearing out could lead to some low clouds and fog here in the areas that do clear out. Otherwise, more rain moving into the southwest interior and extending up toward the Kobuk and Koyukuk Valley areas. And then a lot of moisture with this system. Strong west-southwest flow is going to pull that right into the southwest coast and extend up into the north-central interior, actually all the way to the eastern Arctic coast tomorrow. And that moves inland on the next day.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.